Hello everybody! So we're working on the coordinate plane. This is from 6.NS.6b, and we're going to work on identifying the points in ordered pairs. This is in your textbook starting on page 396, and if you wanted to open up and look at that as we go over the notes, that's fine as well, or cut and paste things from your textbook is always fine, or you can go online and try and print parts of it as well, or you can just draw beautiful pictures like I do. Alright. So the first thing that we want to talk about are identifying points in ordered pairs. The coordinate plane is formed when the x-axis and the y-axis intersect at their 0 points. So I'd like for you to draw on your paper a beautiful, oh that's not very beautiful, plus sign like this. And I want you to label the y is the one that goes up and down, and the x is the one that goes side to side. Now, when we move on a coordinate plane, we either, well, actually you have only so far probably been going to the right and then up. And so you've been in this area right here. Well, now we're going to be checking out our other quadrants. So these are quadrants, shocking because it's 4 of them. That's quad for 4. We are going to label them, and we're going to have to remember how to label them because they are not always going to be given to us. This is always quadrant 1, and you can remember that because it was the first one you learned. Quadrant 1 is the first one you learned. And in quadrant 1, you have a positive and a positive. That's what this little table right here says. You have a positive and a positive. But we're also going to now talk about quadrant 2. Now quadrant 2, we're noticing that we're going to go around counterclockwise, the opposite way that a clock goes, and quadrant 2 is going to be a negative and then a positive. Over here, these are negatives, like -1, -2, -3, as you've just gotten done seeing on your number lines working with positive and negative numbers. See, it all comes together, right? All right, now the next quadrant is quadrant 3. And we can just abbreviate Q1, Q2, Q3. Again, we're going in our counterclockwise order. And it's quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, now you notice that in the x's, we're still in the negatives. So it's going to be a negative. And now on the y-axis, we're going down. And so on the y-axis, we're going down. And remember, whenever you had temperature and elevation, that when you go down the number line, these become negatives. And so thinking of these as negatives, we're going to have in this quadrant right here, we're going to have negative, comma, negative. And I know that these look like winky faces and stuff, don't they? Like owl faces or something. All right, the next one is quadrant, can you guess? 4. You guys are so great. Quadrant 4. Now in quadrant 4, notice my x values are on the right side of my 0, and so that's a positive x. But then it's down here on my y, which makes a negative y. So now that's positive, negative. And this picture would be so much prettier on a separate piece. So I'm going to cut and paste it and show it to you. Hold on just a second. If you need to pause it and then you can copy them, then you can. All right, remember when I said it was going to be prettier? I think I might have lied. Okay, sorry, this is hideous, but it has all the things that we need in it. So we've got our quadrant 1, positive and positive. We have our quadrant 2, negative, comma, positive. We have our quadrant 3, negative and negative. And we have our quadrant 4, which is positive and then negative. And we can figure out what's positive and what's negative just by knowing that the first one is our x value. So the first value is our x value, and our second value is our y value. So write this down. This is our ordered pair. The x's used to only go to the right, but now we know that they go right or left. The y's used to only go up, but now we know that they go up or down. To the right is a positive, to the left is a negative. Up is a positive, down is the negative. And when we put these two pieces together, our up and our down, our x and y, we meet right here where they're all zeros. Okay, my x is a 0 and my y is a 0. And so from the left I've got negatives, to the right I have positives. To the up, I know, funny, I'm so funny, we have positives, down we have negatives. Okay, very cut and dry. So looking at our first example here, it says to identify the ordered pair that names point C. So we've got point C right here, and we need to figure out what are the numbers that correlate to the letter C. We know that our first number has to be our x, and our second number has to be our y. I would recommend that you always show the x comma y, and then underneath it you can write in what is the x. So over here, I'm going to go to the x, and that's at 1 point, or 1.5, or 1.5, however you want to write it. Then if we go up, we see that that correlates to the 1 on the y-axis. So we have axis. So we have 1.5 comma 1 is the point for C. All right, so ordered pairs are a point that are located on the x-axis. We'll have, oh, sorry. So if it's on the x-axis, meaning that here's my point right here, that means that whatever this is, let's say it's -3, it's -3 for the x, but going up or down, we're not going either one of those things. We're actually staying right on the line, so that means our y is always going to be a 0 when we land on the x-axis. Now, opposite to that, the same thing is true if we're on the y-axis. So let's say that we land right here, and we're on the x-axis, or sorry, y-axis. Our x is still on 0. Remember that this dot right here was 0? So if we're on the y-axis, our x is now 0. And we went up to +3. And so in this case it would be 0, 3. Now these aren't in quadrants, they're just on the axis. So if I asked you where was this on the graph, you would say it's on the y-axis. If I had a dot right here and I asked you where that is on the graph, you would say it's on the x-axis. Okay? All right. So our second one now says it's giving us, this is the second way of us solving, it's giving us the location. We have to figure out what quadrant that is. Well, first thing, we need to figure out which dot it is. So -1.5 means I'm going to go x-axis, I'm going to go over and then down, because these are negatives. So I'm going to go over to 1.5, and then I'm going to go down to 1. And I'm landing on B. Now it's not asking me if I landed on B. It's not asking me for the letter, and sometimes it will. This time it's asking me which quadrant am I in. So remember, we always learned 1 first. Sorry for that interruption. All right, it is the first axis that we learned is 1. Then we're going to go Then we're going to go counterclockwise, and so that makes 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, and so this is in quadrant 3. And remember, you can identify that by a negative and a negative. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to have you work on this one on your own paper. If you want to copy down the graph, you can, or cut it out of your book. That's fine too, or just look at the picture. And we're going to do A and B. When you come back, we'll go over the answers. Pause the video now. All right, so the first one is asking us where point A is, which quadrant. If this is 1, we go counterclockwise. This is going to be quadrant 2. So the answer for A is quadrant 2. Then it says example 1, identify the point that's located at 1, -2. And so if I'm looking at 1, that's over to the right 1, and then -2 is down, and so I find that that is E. And the quadrant that it is located, oh, it wants us, okay, I'll go back to that in just a second. And the quadrant, 1, 2, 3, 4, so quadrant 4. Now I didn't notice that it wanted us to identify the ordered pair for A, so let me go back to that really quick. For A, it would be over -1 and up to 1.5. And so this is the ordered pair for A, and again, it's in quadrant 2. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Sorry it ended up being so long, but you know I can't help but talk because I love you all. All right, goodbye. See you in school.